Fake Boyfriend. Young Love, Book 1. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Paulina Schubert. Chapter 8. Things looked better in the morning, as they often did. It helped that the sun was shining on this warm, beautiful day. It was also the weekend, and I was going shopping with my new friend. To top it off, my mom was making pancakes when I walked into the kitchen. "Good morning," she called out brightly. "Morning, Mom," I replied. "Here, eat them while they're warm." She handed me the plate of pancakes I knew she had made for herself. Gage was wrong about her. She did splurge sometimes, although he might not consider 2 pancakes splurging. I poured syrup over them and cut a small piece to taste before getting up to pour myself a glass of milk. I set out a glass for my mom, too, as I knew it wouldn't take her long to make 2 more pancakes. She put the rest of the batter in the fridge when she was done and joined me at the table. I smiled at her, happy to have some alone time with her, like when it had been just the 2 of us. "How was your first week of school?" she asked. "It was good," I said, admitting the part about how everyone had treated me like dirt at first. "I made a friend, Amber. We're going shopping today." "That's wonderful," she replied before getting a sly look in her eyes. "Courtney told us you went on a date yesterday. She said that you have a boyfriend." She smiled enthusiastically. "Spill, Sarah. Tell me about him." I set down my fork. "When did you talk to Courtney?" I looked around like she might be hiding somewhere. "Last night," Mom answered. "She said that you already went to bed. I almost woke you up to get the details, but I managed to contain myself. All she told us about him was that he goes to school with you and that he's very good looking." I tried not to let the thought of Courtney's interest in Gage sour my mood. "Yeah, he is, but he's not conceited about it. Not like Courtney," I added silently. "Kinda like you," I told her, realizing it suddenly. "You never act conceited about how beautiful you are." That was something I had never focused on until now, simply because she was my mom. "How you look is not an accomplishment," she told me, her expression becoming serious. "Not unless you worked out to get in shape or something like that. It's a good sign that this boy doesn't seem to be in love with himself. But just be careful not to be too dazzled by his looks. Make sure you get to know him." I felt like I already knew him as well as I knew my best friend, but I couldn't reveal any of that to my mom. I wouldn't share Gage's secrets with anyone, even Emily. I hadn't told her anything about his dad being in prison. Not because I was worried about her reaction, but because it was something private that Gage had shared with me. The promise I'd made him not to tell had been unnecessary, since I wouldn't have told anyone anyway. "I'm getting to know him," I said to my mom. "We've been talking a lot." "Talking is good," she said with a laugh. "You can stay with talking for a while. Like, until you get married." I blushed, understanding her implication. She looked at me in alarm. "You haven't—" "No!" I exclaimed. "God, Mom, it was only our first date." "Okay," she said, looking relieved. "Sorry. I'm new at dealing with you dating. I really thought I'd handle it better, especially since you're 18. I guess I need to back up and start from the beginning. Where'd you go on your date?" "Well, first we went to a friend's house. They're in a band," I explained. "And they were practicing for their show tonight. Then we went out to eat, and then he brought me home." "A band," my mom repeated with a smile. "Were they practicing in his friend's garage?" "Yeah, but they look really good," I insisted, reading the amused expression on her face. "Gage is an amazing singer, and he writes his own songs." "That's wonderful," she said, but I could tell that she didn't believe that he could have actual talent. "You should find a fun hobby, too." This was an ongoing thing with her. She had tried putting me in various activities when I was little, but none of them had stuck. From ballet to soccer, I quit them all. Since I didn't want to do organized activities, she had started suggesting after-school clubs, but I had no interest in those either. Emily was the only person I socialized with, and we spent lots of casual time together just hanging out. Besides that, I spent time on my own reading. One thing I did in secret in the privacy of my room was dance. Not even Emily knew about that, because I would have been embarrassed for anyone to see me. What I loved about it was how I could just let go and have fun without being self-conscious. I would never have been able to dance in front of other people with complete abandon like I did when I was by myself. It didn't matter if I was a good dancer or not. It was just pure, exhilarating fun. So, did he kiss you? My mom's question brought my focus sharply back to her as memories of Gage's mouth on mine set heat rushing through me and inflamed my face. I'll take that as a yes, my mom commented wryly. I looked down at my plate, feeling really uncomfortable to be talking about this with my mother. Thankfully, she moved on past the topic of kissing. When do I get to meet him? Tonight maybe? I replied uncertainly, glancing back up to her. I'm going to his show, but I'm not sure if he's picking me up. His friend said something about loading their stuff into a van, probably their instruments, I am assuming. I'll ask Amber how she's getting there. Her boyfriend is in the band, too. I'm glad you'll have a friend there, she said in relief. I want to know where you're going, though. Okay, I said. I'll ask Amber the name of the place. Gage mentioned it, but I forgot. I resumed eating my pancakes now that I felt more comfortable with the conversation. My stepfather walked into the kitchen shortly after my mom and I finished our breakfast. I cleared our plates off the table as she got up to make him pancakes. So, Sarah, I hear you went on a date yesterday, he said. She's going on another one tonight, my mom told him. Her boyfriend is in a band. She shared it like it was a joke. They apparently have a show somewhere tonight. He didn't appear to be as amused by this as she was. I hope he's not a drug user. I think we need to meet this person, he said, speaking the word like it was something unsavory. Sarah wouldn't get involved with someone like that, Mom said. He's just a kid in a garage band. I dated a boy like that myself in high school. You did? I asked in surprise. You never told me that. She waved it off like it was unimportant. It was a short time before I left for New York. Was his band any good? I questioned. She responded with a laugh. They thought they were, but they were just typical kids making a bunch of noise and dreaming about becoming rock stars. I had assumed that about Gage's band too, but they sounded like they actually could become rock stars. I knew the chances of that happening were slim, though. Gage's band is actually really good, I told her. I heard that about them, Courtney said as she walked into the kitchen. I think I'll go see their show tonight. That's a good idea, her dad exclaimed enthusiastically as I deflated. You can go with Sarah. Courtney emitted a little laugh. She's going on a date, Dad. She's not bringing me along. I'll go with my friends. They're going anyway. That did not make me feel any better. How'd you know about the show tonight? I inquired in what I hoped was a casual manner. It was kind of a last-minute thing for them. Her laugh was louder this time. There were flyers all over school. You must really be in love if you didn't notice them. I flushed in embarrassment, and Courtney laughed again. Yeah, you've got it bad. Courtney, her dad admonished her, looking very displeased. She's just teasing, Mom said. It's what sisters do. Anyway, what's the name of this place? She questioned Courtney. Sammy's, she replied. Luckily, it's an 18 and over bar, so we can get in. It sucks for my friend who can't, though. Megan's birthday is only 2 weeks away. She saw them play at a party a few months ago, though. A bar? You can't go to a bar, her dad exclaimed. You're still in high school. Come on, Dad, Courtney cajoled. We're just going to see a concert. We can't drink anyway. They're pretty strict about that, Mom agreed. They're much more likely to be underage drinking at a party than a bar. I thought back to the underage drinking that had been going on under this very roof while she and Daniel had been away on their honeymoon. He had no clue that Courtney had already done what he was trying to prevent by forbidding her to go to a bar. He probably didn't know that she had sex all over this house either. I felt a little queasy recalling that, and then I felt really awful when I remembered her saying that she wanted to have sex with Gage. Dad, please, Courtney exclaimed. Look at how upset Sarah is. She can't not go to her boyfriend's show. I knew that she couldn't care less about me, but she sure made it sound like she did. Daniel looked at me and relented. I'm trusting you to look out for her, he told Courtney. You have safety in numbers with your friends, but Sarah doesn't know this boy very well. Get her away from him if something doesn't look right. Get out of there immediately, at the first sign of trouble." "I will," she promised. Amber texted me then, reminding me that she would be picking me up at noon. I replied to her text and told my mom about it. "Oh, good," she said. "We'll be able to meet her." I left them in the kitchen with Courtney and went upstairs to call Emily. She had wanted to hear about Gage's band, and she was the only one who knew my real situation with Gage. She was the only one I could talk to about my feelings for him. I had told her about my first kiss with him, but I hadn't felt like talking last night, and hadn't yet told her about our much hotter second kiss. She was excited to hear about it now, but she was silent after I described how cold he had been afterwards. She just listened as I then related what Courtney had said last night. "Maybe you should just let her have him." "What?" I asked in surprise. I heard her sigh. "You get to kiss a hot guy, which would be great if you could just enjoy it, but he's upsetting you. It'll be better if it ends now before you fall in love with him." "In love?" I questioned in dismay. "That's crazy. I've only known him for a week." "And you already have feelings for him," she retorted. "Otherwise you wouldn't get upset about him being with other girls. You had a crush on Connor for 3 years, and you didn't get depressed when you saw him dating someone else." "Connor never kissed me. He barely ever even said 2 words to me. There's a big difference between him and Gage." "Exactly," she said. "You're getting attached to Gage. Kissing him is making you feel like he's really your boyfriend. But if he sleeps with Courtney, you won't want him to touch you." "No," I agreed in disgust. "I wouldn't be able to kiss him after that." "So even if you still pretended he was your boyfriend, it would help you keep your distance and not fall in love with him." What she said made sense, but I still couldn't stomach the thought of him with Courtney. Anyone but her, I thought miserably. If I knew he was having sex with her, I would lose my mind. I couldn't think about this anymore, so I changed the subject. "Anyway, the show is tonight, so I'll see them on stage." "Oh, I kept meaning to ask you, what's the name of their band?" I paused as I realized I hadn't asked. "I don't know. I forgot to ask." "You can tell me tomorrow. I'm sure they'll announce it at the show." "Right," I said. "I'll make sure I'm paying attention." There was an awkward silence between us, which I'd never experienced with Emily before. It made me suddenly worry about distance affecting our friendship. I scrambled for something to say and realized that I had been talking way too much about me. "Anyway, I didn't even ask you how school is going." "Well," she said, "I've been making myself talk to people. I thought if you could be brave enough to approach Gage outside of school, then I could start conversations with people at school. They turned out not to be so scary to talk to. I'm even kind of making friends with Taylor Morgan." "Really?" I questioned in surprise. Taylor was one of the popular girls at school, and I couldn't imagine a conversation between her and Emily. "What'd you guys talk about?" I saw that she was upset, and I asked her if she was okay. She started ranting to me about her backstabbing friend, and then we just talked for a while. She asked me how I was doing without you, and I told her that it was hard and that I missed you a lot. She ended up inviting me over. "To her house?" I asked stupidly. Taylor lived across the street from Emily, but we had never been inside her house. We had seen the most popular people at school go into that house, and we had watched them like starstruck fans. Taylor had even dated Connor for several months, which had provided me with an opportunity to see him when I was at Emily's house. I had been disappointed when they broke up. "Yeah," Emily replied. "Remember how it always seemed so special? But it's basically the same as mine. And talking to Taylor wasn't that different than—" She trailed off and started again. "Well, it wasn't that different talking to her. She's a person, just like us." I wanted to be happy for Emily for becoming friends with Taylor, but I couldn't help thinking that she'd been about to say that talking to her wasn't that different than talking to me. I was starting to have an uneasy feeling that she was going to replace me with Taylor. I couldn't say that, though, because it would make me sound really selfish. She had just said that she missed me and that it was hard for her without me there. I felt guilty that I'd been only focused on my own transition into my new school, and hadn't considered how it would be for her to adjust being left by herself. "That's good," I said. "I'm glad she's nice." "She really is," Emily said. I felt a pang, but I listened as she proceeded to tell me about how she was going to the pool this afternoon with Taylor. And we're spending the entire day tomorrow at the lake. It's the last weekend for swimming, so we're taking advantage. She had always tried to get me to do that, but I refused to wear a bathing suit out in public, so we had stuck to canoeing when we went to the lake. I was starting to suspect that she would have more fun with Taylor than she'd had with me. For the first time ever, I didn't feel better after talking to Emily. When Amber arrived, I wasn't in the mood to go shopping. I couldn't cancel on her at the last minute, though, so I invited her in to meet my mom and Daniel before we left. Amber was blonde with a wispy bob hairstyle that framed a pretty face with delicate feminine features. It looked great on her, but I couldn't imagine wearing my hair that short. Mine hung below my shoulders, and something about that made me feel more secure. Meeting Amber seemed to make Daniel feel more comfortable about us going to the show, since she apparently met his approval. I wondered how he would have reacted if she had piercings and tattoos. Would he have assumed that she was bad news? Then I began to wonder how he would react to Gage. He obviously had a good opinion of Damon, which just went to show how people could be fooled by outward appearances and false charm. Damon acted like a gentleman in front of Daniel, but screwed his daughter behind his back. On top of that, he wouldn't even acknowledge her as his girlfriend. As she drove us to the mall, I filled Amber in on how Daniel had almost refused to let me go to the show. My stepsister actually saved the day, I admitted grudgingly. Oh, I would have snuck you out, Amber replied breezily. She glanced at me and saw my wide-eyed expression. Don't tell me you've never snuck out of the house before. Well, I never had anywhere to sneak out to. The only place I ever went at night was to my friend's house for sleepovers. As soon as the words were out of my mouth, I knew that I had revealed too much. Since dates were usually at night, I had let slip that I hadn't been on any. Amber confirmed that she had picked up on that. So, Gage is your first boyfriend? Yeah, I answered sheepishly. That's something. He hasn't dated in a long time, and you've never dated. How long? I pried, forgetting my embarrassment. Did you ever meet his ex-girlfriend? Amber was silent as I waited expectantly for her to answer. Look, she finally said, I don't feel right talking about his past. That's something you should hear from him, if he wants to tell you. The only thing I can say is that he hasn't had a girlfriend in 3 years. Even though Courtney had said that he didn't date, I was stunned by that revelation. Since he was 19 now, I quickly calculated that he had been 16 when he and his girlfriend broke up. In 3 years, he had had plenty of time to get over her. I knew that it wasn't lack of interest from girls at school that had prevented him from getting a new girlfriend, so it had to be his decision not to date. The only reason that I could think of was that he didn't want to take the chance of getting burned again, like he had with his ex-girlfriend. I was anxious to hear the lyrics to his songs again and listen for more clues to his feelings. My own feelings were in turmoil when my phone rang, and I saw that Gage was calling me. Hello? I answered uncertainly. Hey, Sarah. He greeted me like things hadn't been strained between us when we parted last night. Is it okay if I pick you up at 7:30? The show isn't until 9, but we need to set up beforehand. I thought that Dylan told you to be at his house at 7:30, I replied. Yeah, but we changed it to earlier, so that I can pick you up later. That still means an hour of waiting around for the show to start. Are you okay with that? You can come later, but parking might be bad, and you shouldn't be walking at night by yourself. I want to go with you, I said, maybe a little too eagerly. Hearing his voice was making me anticipate seeing him again. Okay, he said, and something about the satisfaction in his voice started that excited fluttering in my stomach. I'll pick you up at... Oh, I exclaimed, interrupting him. I'm going to be at Amber's house. We're going shopping right now, and... That's fine, he interjected. I can pick you up from her house and give her a ride too, but what about your stepsister seeing me picking you up for our date? My mood plummeted at the mention of her. She'll be at the show, I stated flatly, so she'll see me there. Even better, he said, lowering my spirits even further. I couldn't help wondering if he wanted her to see him do his rock star thing and be impressed. I'm going to need Amber's address, he added. I related that request to her, and I repeated the information to him as she told it to me. When I got off the phone with him, I explained the plan to Amber. and she agreed that it was a good idea for Gage to drive us there. "Don't worry. You'll get to be alone with him after the show," she assured me. "I'll get a ride home with Jason." "Oh, no, that's okay. You can get a ride with us. I mean, I'm sure that Gage will drive you home." "I'm sure that he will too," she replied to my flustered response. "But that's not what he'll want to do. And I'll want to be alone with Jason anyway." She glanced at me with a smile that hinted at why she wanted to be alone with Jason. I looked away uncomfortably. Emily and I had giggled about sex, but those conversations hadn't been based on experience. They didn't involve anything personal or private. I hoped that Amber wasn't the type to share intimate details. To my relief, she didn't say anything else about it, and segued into talking about the show instead. "I think they'll have a good turnout," she told me. "A lot of people saw my flyers before the school tore them down, and they spread the word to everyone else." "You put up those flyers?" I asked, not mentioning that I hadn't noticed them. "But why'd the school tear them down?" "It's not a school-related activity, and it's at a bar. I knew they wouldn't stay up for long, but I wanted to do everything I could to get the word out since it was such short notice. There will still probably be a lot of Reaper fans there, though. Hopefully they'll like Dirty just as much." "Dirty?" I questioned. "That's their name?" "Yeah," she confirmed. I repeated it silently to myself, trying to decide if it was a good name for a band or not. It was certainly simple and easy to remember, so that worked in their favor. I wasn't sure what kind of image it presented, though. My thoughts turned to my own image once Amber cajoled me into trying on outfits I would have never chosen to wear. "That's the one," she declared. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and momentarily considered going out in public like this. The white miniskirt was high-waisted, so it covered up my stomach. It was a flared style, which gave it a cute, flirty look. The black, off-the-shoulder crop top had subdued enough style and color not to be emphasizing my breasts. There was only a small patch of my midriff showing. This outfit actually didn't look bad on me, and Amber managed to talk me into getting it. She picked out a black mini dress for herself that was much more provocative than what I had bought. Although she would be sharing less skin than me, since even her shoulders and arms would be covered by long, sheer sleeves with lacy black designs, the dress was skin-tight. The lace overlay made it look elegant, but the way it hugged her curves was sexy to the extreme. She smirked at me. "We're their girlfriends. We've got to look the part." That didn't exactly bolster my confidence, and I became nervous as we got ready at her house later that day. Surely people wouldn't really be looking at me. They would be watching the band, and even the people who knew that I was Gage's supposed girlfriend wouldn't be paying attention to me. I would just be a person in the audience like everyone else. I still hadn't managed to shake my nerves by the time Gage arrived to pick us up, and they only got worse when I saw him. He was wearing black pants and a black button-down shirt that was just casually open down to his collarbone. There was something about the combination of being dressed up, but slightly undone, that looked extra sexy. His tousled, dirty blonde hair did nothing to soften his handsome face. Maybe it was his heavy eyebrows that gave him such a masculine look. They offset those coolly distant blue eyes with thick sensuality. Sex god flitted through my mind as I stared at him. His gaze heated, burning away the distance between us even before he stepped closer. "Thank you. I guess it's okay to tell you how sexy you look." I was trying not to stare, but... His eyes swept down my body before returning to my flushed face. It flamed as I realized I had spoken my thought about him aloud. Sex god. I had said those words directly to him. Amber came breezing past us on her high heels, completely oblivious to my mortification. "Let's go, guys. You can make eyes at each other later." I slunk away from Gage and followed Amber to his car. She was getting into the back seat, and I went around to the other side. "What are you doing?" she demanded as I opened the door to get in. "Go sit up front." "You won't have much leg room behind me," Gage said. "My seat is back pretty far." I was too embarrassed to sit beside him, but standing there drawing more of his scrutiny wasn't helping either, so I went around and got into the passenger seat without protest. I didn't look at Gage as he sat down beside me, and I avoided looking at him during the drive to the bar. There were plenty of empty spots in the parking lot, and I began to worry that they might not have a good turnout tonight. "Don't worry," Amber told me as if reading my mind. "There's still over an hour until the show. People will be here." We spotted Noah getting out of a van, and Gage excused himself to go help unload their instruments. Amber and I walked into the bar and handed over our driver's licenses for inspection before being permitted to roam freely inside. I had never been in a bar before, but it didn't look that much different from a restaurant. There were tables scattered around the bar area where bartenders were serving drinks, and I even saw people at one table eating burgers and fries. My eyes were drawn to the stage, which was much smaller than the stage at the arena where I had seen concerts. Amber and I watched the guys set up their equipment. She waited until they were done before going up to give Jason a kiss. He pulled back afterwards and looked her up and down appreciatively. "Damn, you are smoking hot!" My gaze drifted away from them uncomfortably, but it landed on Gage, whose own gaze held me captive even as it flustered me. The nervous fluttering in my stomach went to a wild frenzy as he began to walk toward me. "Sarah!" An unwelcome voice called out, and stopped me out of my taut anticipation of Gage's kiss. I turned my head and saw Courtney strutting toward me, in low-rise jean shorts that showed off her enviably flat stomach. Her tight red crop top displayed lots of skin and cleavage. Unlike mine, it barely covered her breasts, and it was held up by thin spaghetti straps. She looked like she could spill out of it at any moment. "You look nice," she told me. Before I could think of a response, she turned her attention to Gage. "I can't wait to hear you sing. I heard that you guys are really good." "Welcome to the show," he said with a brief smile. "I hope you enjoy it." "I'm sure I will," she said in a flirtatious tone. "I'll be right up there in front where I can see everything." The look in her eyes was pure seduction, and she was making it brazenly clear when she spoke the word that everything meant his body. She had dismissed me as looking nice, and was blatantly offering him her sex siren self. Gage was showing admirable restraint in not looking at her perfect body, but I knew that I couldn't compete with her. "Excuse me," he said. "They need me for sound check." He glanced at me. "I'm glad you're here." It wasn't a kiss, or flirting, it was... "That's sweet," Courtney said as we watched him walk back to the stage. The remark was spoken in the same mild tone as when she told me I looked nice. There was no viciousness or mocking in it. She finally saw me as the non-threat I was, someone barely worth her notice. The relief that I should have felt about this was lost beneath a hollow feeling. "What the hell are you wearing?" a male voice demanded. I turned toward him in alarm, but Damon's angry glare was directed at Courtney. Slipping away before he noticed me, I found Amber at a nearby table. "The place is filling up," she told me in satisfaction. "I grabbed us a table before they were all gone. We'll have to take turns going to the bathroom so nobody steals our seats. Who's the groupie you were talking to?" "That's my stepsister, Courtney," I replied. Amber did a double take. "That's Courtney Keller? Holy shit, I never would have recognized her. Miss Homecoming Queen is sexing up her image. When did that happen?" "Since she became a groupie," I answered glumly. "Hey, you're not worried about that shit working on Gage, are you?" "He doesn't screw groupies," she assured me. "How do you know what he does after the show?" I retorted. "If he doesn't date, and he's got groupies offering to sleep with him, a guy that hot..." "That doesn't mean he sleeps around," she argued. "It's kind of a double standard if you think about it. We get offended when guys assume that a hot girl is easy, but we expect hot guys to be players. Not all of them are. Besides, Gage wouldn't cheat on you. He hates cheaters." That might be true, but we weren't really dating. Since our romantic relationship wasn't real, it wouldn't really be cheating. I could tell none of this to Amber, though, so I dredged up a smile and pretended to be reassured. I must not have been very convincing, though. "I've seen the way he looks at you," she insisted. "He hasn't looked at any girl that way since..." She trailed off and looked away from me. Everything else fell away as I realized that she had just revealed to me that she had seen Gage's ex-girlfriend, and that she had seen them together while he had been dating her. Curiosity was now at the forefront of my mind, and I was frustrated by her refusal to talk about this. "Would you like something to drink?" a woman asked, and I saw that a waitress had approached our table. "Yeah," Amber said, sounding relieved. "I'll have a Diet Coke." I knew that I should drink Diet too, but I hated the taste of it. I avoided drinking soda most of the time, but I splurged when I went out. "I'll have a regular Coke." I'll get this round, Amber told me after the waitress left. You get the next one. Okay, I agreed. Hey, Amber, a girl I recognized from school greeted her. Can we sit here with you? Sure, Daisy, Amber replied. We've got 2 extra seats. Hey, Melanie, she greeted the other girl. Do you guys know Sarah? Yeah, Daisy answered enthusiastically. She's famous. New girl sweeps in and wins the heart of the guy no one could get. It's like Twilight. Melanie groaned and Amber laughed. Daisy was the girl in the bathroom that day who had been gushing about Gage to me. She seemed to be just as excited about our romance now as she was then. Little did she know she was correct about it being just like Twilight. Both were fiction. The waitress came back with our drinks and took Daisy and Melanie's drink orders. Melanie told us that it was her birthday yesterday. If this had been last weekend, I wouldn't have been able to go. That would have sucked, Daisy agreed. I wouldn't have gone either without you. They need to have more all-ages places where bands can play, Amber said. It's pretty limited for the guys with just a few 18 and over bars and playing some private parties. They should post videos on YouTube, Daisy suggested. That's how 5 Seconds of Summer got famous. Gage has been holding us back on that, Amber complained. He thinks we need professional equipment. And he says it's not worth it to spend the money on it when the chance of the videos being noticed are so slim. So, she trailed off as she glanced at the stage and then back to us. I'm going to record this show on my phone and post it to YouTube. If nobody sees it, Gage won't know about it anyway. I glanced warily between the stage and us, which was a short distance in this small place. What if he sees you filming them? She gave me a devious smile. I told Jason that I wanted to record the show tonight, so I can watch it again at home. I'm sure he mentioned it to Gage, and he'll think it's just for me. I would have brought the tripod with me otherwise, but that would tip him off. I'll just have to do the best I can to hold it steady. Awesome, I exclaimed, excited about her plan now. After I watched them practiced, I wish I could listen to the songs again at home, and now I'll be able to. Yeah, Daisy agreed. You'll have to send me the link to that video, and then everybody who couldn't come to see the show will get to see it, she added excitedly. Amber looked toward the stage again and took her phone out of her purse. She tried holding it in different positions, and somehow managed to angle it to her satisfaction on the tabletop. Now my arms won't get tired, she commented. Shortly after that, Gage spoke into the microphone, and my attention was riveted on him. When he introduced the band, he said it in such an aggressive way that it elicited an immediate and very loud response from the girls in the audience. We are dirty, he emphasized and flashed a wicked smile. The music began amidst the screaming, and then everyone settled down to listen to the song. Do you feel the music? Does it speak to your soul? Will you give me this moment and completely let go? Yeah, I've been waiting for this. The first beat like a lover awakening desire with a kiss. The excitement building with every drum beat. The sultry sounds of the guitar turning up the heat. It was a sexy seduction of lyrics and sound. The bass rhythm plays deep and low. Do you feel it vibrate through you? Do you feel your anticipation grow? Have you come for this feeling that's pure rock and roll? Yeah, this is what I want. This sets alight my soul. He looked straight at me then. So come on, rock with me. Let this feeling consume you whole. I was already aroused by the sexually charged music and lyrics and the sound of Gage's voice, but his look electrified me. It seemed like he was singing the words directly to me, and it was one of the most exciting moments of my life. In that moment, I understood why groupies went wild for the guys in these bands. It was different than seeing an attractive guy at school. Gage really was like some kind of rock god up on that stage. He was mesmerizing and magnetic, and he was looking at me. When his gaze shifted away from me, I continued to feel its effects. The excitement I felt was almost too much, and I could barely contain it. I wanted to jump to my feet and dance, especially when they followed their first song with a cover of a familiar song that I could easily rock out to at home. Self-consciousness kept me in my seat, but other girls weren't so shy. They danced in front of the stage, and Courtney was among them. Seeing her shake her ass in those shorts killed my desire to dance. I didn't want anyone to compare my body to hers. She was only up there a short time, though, before Damon dragged her back to her seat. I was actually on board with his caveman behavior, although I know he had no right to tell her what to do. My jealousy was an ugly thing, I acknowledged to myself. The next song was the one about Gage's ex-girlfriend, and it further emphasized to me the power of a beautiful woman. She could get anything she wanted with it, diamonds, cars, and a guy like Gage. He hadn't wanted anyone else but her. When the day came that he finally did, he certainly wouldn't pick someone like me. He would probably find a girl even more beautiful than his ex. The next tune was a cover of a popular song, and the crowd loved it. Most people here probably didn't know the band's original songs, although they seemed to like them when they heard them. Gage was apparently playing it safe by including known songs in the show. He sang several of those in a row before the big finish. "This one is called Sweetest Sin," he said, and directed his gaze straight at me again. "The sweetest sin is when we're skin to skin." "Yeah, baby," a girl called out as I flushed in embarrassment. His gaze didn't linger on me as he continued to sing, but my blush deepened. "Nothing between you and me except what we do." "Oh my God," Daisy breathed beside me. I could barely breathe myself. He was pure, undiluted sex up there with his sultry, sexy voice and his erotic intensity. "Only for tonight, but it feels so right. We don't need names to fan these flames. When you let me in, it's the sweetest sin. Let me touch you like this. Let me give you a kiss, oh, everywhere. Come on, baby, do you dare to taste the sweetest sin with me? Oh, it's a luscious guarantee, sexy as a moan when my hands roam past soft thighs into satisfied sighs. Baby, you're just a fantasy, but you do it for me." His gaze moved back to me then, and I almost burst into flames. Even when he looked away as the song ended, I was still burning. I watched him with a heated gaze as he finished the show by thanking the audience and repeating the name of the band. He was surrounded by girls when he stepped off the stage, including Courtney. She placed her hands on his arm and said something to him. I felt that sharp, predatory stab of jealousy, but it made me want to go knock her hand off him rather than run from the sight. I stayed in my seat, but every muscle in my body was taut with tension. He gave her a cold smile that seemed to have an edge of danger to it. He leaned in to say something to her, but Damon came charging up to them and yanked her away. Gage started striding toward me before the rest of the girls could gather their wits. I stood up at his approach as nervous anticipation took hold of me. Gage placed his hands on my waist like he was going to pull me against him, but he kept the space between us as he gazed at me. It seemed to only heighten my anticipation more, and it filled that space between us with tension that held me taut. "We'll get out of here soon," he said with an unspoken promise in his eyes. I was dimly aware of Amber and Daisy speaking as I watched him go back to the stage and start carrying equipment off of it with the other guys. I remained distracted and only half listening to the conversation between Amber, Melanie, and Daisy. When Gage returned, I was still in a partial daze. I responded to the girls when they said bye and walked away with Gage as Amber walked out with Jason. We parted in the parking lot as Gage led me to his car. "Don't sleep with Courtney," I blurted without preamble, the words spilling out of my mouth unbidden. He let go of my hand and turned to face me with a look that spiked my temperature. "You don't want me to?" he asked in a quiet but intense tone. "No," I told him, somehow not embarrassed to admit it. "I can't stand the thought of you being with her." "I don't want her," he said. He moved closer and his tone softened. "She's not warm and sweet like you." I melted, even as my heart began to beat faster, as Gage reached out to tilt my chin before bringing his lips down to mine. Languid heat spread through me with his slow, sensual kiss. I stared at him in a haze of desire when he pulled back. He took my hand and entwined his fingers with mine, when he led me around to the passenger side and opened the door for me with his other hand. He smiled at me, and it was a warm smile that I felt in my heart. I happily sat down in the seat as Gage let go of my hand and shut the door for me. Desire was still simmering within me, and the warmth that I felt from Gage quelled the self-consciousness that I usually felt and gave me confidence. "You need to pull over somewhere," I said a few minutes after he drove out of the parking lot of the bar. "I want to kiss you again." "Yeah," he replied in a tone that sent a thrill through me. "I want to kiss you again, too." My anticipation built to an almost unbearable level as he kept driving and passing up empty parking lots of businesses that were closed at night. When he finally turned off the parkway, my desire was so strong that I was nearly ready to jump him. "We'll have to come back during the day so you can see the lake," he said as he parked the car. I couldn't think of anything else but him at the moment, and I shifted over to get closer to him. He turned toward me in his seat, and in the next instant he was suddenly kissing me hungrily like he couldn't hold back anymore. The heat inside me became an inferno, and I moaned into his mouth. He groaned and grabbed my hips to lift me over onto his lap. I gasped when his seat fell back, but he pulled me down with him and resumed kissing me. Feeling his hands grasping my rear as I straddled him sent a new spike of arousal through me, and I moaned again. A low sound came from the back of his throat, and he pulled me hard against him, and I became aware of the hard feeling of him between my legs. My gasp stopped him this time, and his hands moved up to my shoulders to push me up and break the kiss. "Fuck," he swore. "You need to get off," he winced. "I mean, off me. Shit, go back to your seat, please." Suddenly embarrassed, I scrambled back to my seat and arranged my miniskirt as primly as possible. I couldn't believe that I had been straddling him without a thought to exposing myself. The skirt had ridden up, and his erection had been pressed against my panties. The thought made me hot again, even as my face flamed with shame. Gage exhaled heavily and put his seat back upright. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't mean to take it that far." "It's okay," I mumbled, and then forced myself to speak more clearly. "Can you drive me home now?" "Yeah." He immediately turned on the car. I looked out at the dark shapes of the trees we passed as he drove out of the parkway. The silence between us was awkward and uncomfortable, but I shut Gage down when he tried to break it. "About what happened," he began. "Please don't talk about it," I pleaded desperately. "But if we... Please. I don't want to talk about it." "Okay," he agreed after a pause. The atmosphere between us was strained now, and I went from being mortified to anxious. I suspected that he had been trying to have a talk about ending things between us. I had gone too far by asking him to kiss me when there was no one around to see us. I had made it obvious that I was attracted to him. And maybe he had come to the conclusion that I wanted to be his girlfriend. If a girl like Courtney was worried about scaring off a guy with that assumption, then it was an even bigger worry for me. I needed to fix this fast. Thinking about Courtney led me to recalling her behavior at the show, and that gave me an idea. It was hard to speak the embarrassing words, so I said them without looking at him. "You're really sexy when you sing. I guess I was just as affected by seeing you on stage as all those other girls. That was the reason I got so..." I trailed off awkwardly, and then tried to make light of it so he would know I wasn't expecting it to turn into anything. I guess I turned into a groupie for a minute. It fell flat. If anything, it somehow made things worse. Gage didn't laugh or even crack a smile, and now he didn't seem to want to look at me either. I could feel the tension emanating from him as he stared out the windshield. Maybe I had inadvertently made him think about the real groupies, and he was aggravated with me for being in the way and preventing him from leaving with one of them. "Well," he finally commented, "I'm glad you enjoyed the show." It was spoken in a derisive, almost mocking tone, and I didn't know how to respond. So I said nothing, and we remained in tense silence until we arrived at my house. Although he walked me to my front door, he didn't hold my hand. "Good night, Sarah," he said flatly. "Good night," I replied as he spun away from me and took off toward his car. I felt just as dejected as I did the previous night. I didn't understand how Gage could run so hot one minute and so cold the next. He had been passionately making out with me, but afterwards he had become uncaring and kind of cruel. I had struggled to pretend that I wasn't still affected by what had happened between us, but he seemed to be able to turn that side of him on and off as easily as his performing skills on stage. He really did have acting talent, I thought bitterly. I couldn't have chosen a better guy to help me fool everyone into thinking he was my boyfriend. The only problem was that he often fooled me, too.